If you want to test your spiritual resilience, open a soup stall in a winter market where the wind has a personal mission to exfoliate your soul. Snowridge Harbor looked like the inside of a holiday candle twinkling lights. Frosted windows, wooden stalls wrapped in evergreen garlands. People moved like bundled penguins, laughing into scarves, holding steaming cups with the kind of joy usually reserved for people who don't have to make the steaming cups. Me? I had a 12-quart pot of chowder, 3 backup burners, and a very serious relationship with my ladle. My booth sign read, Audrey's Hearty Soups, painted by my best friend, Tessa, who insisted alliteration was good branding. I'd wanted to write, Audrey's Soups. Please pay me so I can afford heat. But fine. We were classy. I tightened my apron and checked the lineup. Butternut squash plus brow and butter spicy tomato basil with grilled cheese croutons, classic New England clam. Chowder, because this is Maine and the ocean gets a vote. The winter carnival soup competition was in 3 days. The prize money would cover the deposit for my dream. A tiny storefront on Harbor Street, a real kitchen. Real tables, a place where my name on the door didn't feel like a dare. I'd left Boston after a breakup that didn't just break my heart, it broke my appetite. That's impressive, by the way, because I'm a chef. I make my living by being hungry for life. But heartbreak has a way of turning even butter into cardboard. Still, I'd come here for a reset. Snowridge Harbor was my aunt's town, once cozy, nosy, generous, annoyingly picturesque. The kind of place where the community center smelled like coffee and volunteer guilt. And people used your name like a warm blanket. I wanted that. The warmth. The second chances. The gentle kind of living that didn't require a blazer and emotional armor. I was mid-pour on my squash soup samples when something fluffy and fast slammed into the side of my stall. I stumbled. A tray of sample cups wobbled, and then my glove vanished. I blinked, confused, like my brain needed a second to process the theft. A husky, massive, silver and white, with bright, mischievous eyes, trotted away with my glove in his mouth like he'd just robbed a bank. "Oh no," I said aloud. The husky turned his head, and I swear to you, he smirked. A dog smirking is a scientific phenomenon I'm not emotionally equipped to discuss. "Hey," I called, hopping out from behind my stall. "Excuse me, sir, that's my hand-warming device." The husky broke into a jaunty run through the snow, tail high, glove swinging like a victory flag. I chased him for approximately 6 steps before my boots reminded me I was not, in fact, an Olympic sprinter. "Okay, great, we're doing slapstick today." "Fantastic? Universe. Really premium content." He zigzagged between stalls. People laughed. Someone shouted, "Coda, you menace." So this was not his first crime. "Coda!" I tried again. "Come back here." Looked over his shoulder and accelerated. And then he ran straight into a pair of sturdy legs. The legs belonged to a man. A man who caught the husky with the ease of someone who dealt with chaos for a living, one hand to the collar, the other steadying the dog's chest like he'd done this 100 times. Coda sat instantly, angelic, like he'd never stolen anything in his life. The man looked down at the glove, then up at me, and oh no.
He was unfairly attractive.
Tall but not intimidating, broad shoulders under a navy winter jacket, cheeks pink from the cold, dark hair under a beanie. The kind of face that made you forget where you put your keys and also your emotional boundaries. His eyes were warm hazel, maybe steady and kind, with the calm focus of someone who didn't waste energy on performance. He held my glove up. "I believe this belongs to you." His voice was low and gentle. Like he knew how to talk to stressed people. Like he knew how to talk to people at all. I stopped, slightly breathless, and tried to remember how to be a human being. "Yes," I said, yes. "That's my glove." He glanced down at the husky. "Coda, buddy." "We don't steal," Coda sneezed. The man sighed, like this was a daily battle. Then he held the glove out to me. "I'm sorry," he said.
He's enthusiastic. I took the glove, my fingers brushing his for half a second. Static shot up my arm. I told myself it was the wool.
It was not the wool. "It's fine," I said quickly. "I needed cardio," his mouth quirked. "In snow boots?" "I like a challenge." He smiled fully, and something in my chest warmed like broth. "I'm Caleb," he said. "Caleb Mason." "Audrey," I replied. "Audrey Lane, owner of the glove. Victim of the husky." Caleb's gaze flicked toward my stall. Soup? Yes, I said, immediately too proud. Very good soup. Coda stood, leaned forward, and shoved his nose toward my apron like he was checking for contraband. Don't encourage him, Caleb warned me, but there was no sharpness in it. I raised my brows. Is he yours?
Technically, Caleb said.
Rescue. He adopted me, Coda wagged like correct. Caleb crouched, rubbed behind Coda's ears, then looked back up at me. Are you entering the carnival competition? He asked. I said, trying to win. Trying to not freeze. Trying to not get robbed by wildlife. Caleb chuckled. If you want, I can keep an eye on him. I looked at Coda, who had the audacity to look innocent. Then I looked back at Caleb, whose face said he meant it. No flirting for sport. No, let me impress you. Just offering. Something in me softened. That would be appreciated, I admitted. Caleb nodded like it was settled. Done. Then he hesitated, just a beat like he was choosing his next words carefully. Can I try your soup? He asked. The question was simple, but the way he asked like my answer mattered did something dangerous to me. I swallowed. Yes, you can, Coda barked once, thrilled. Caleb's smile deepened. And as I led them back toward my stall, snow swirling around us, I had the unmistakable sensation that my life had just shifted 1 degree to the left. Not enough to scare me, just enough to change everything. Audrey Lane, 38, curvy woman, 1.62 meters, very beautiful. Blonde with shoulder-length hair worn loose in soft waves, resembles a curvy version of Charlize Theron, winter market chef. Snow boots plus apron. By the end of the market day, Caleb had wandered over 3 times, once to return a second stolen glove. Not mine this time, but still, once to buy an actual bowl of chowder, and once just to stand near my stall and talk while Coda sat like a furry bouncer. He didn't flirt aggressively.
He didn't act like he was doing me a favor by existing.
He didn't say anything weird about my age, my body, my choices. He asked questions and listened. It was unsettling. Because I was used to men who treated conversation like a competition, Caleb treated it like a shared space. When the market closed, I packed my pots into insulated carriers and trudged across the square to the community center kitchen. The kitchen was old but loved big industrial ovens, stainless steel tables scarred with years of bake sales, and a bulletin board covered in flyers. Youth ski lessons, coat drive, soup competition sign-up, prep nights were open to contestants. You could reserve a burner, test recipes, and most importantly, get feedback from the community. Also known as, invite a town full of opinions to critique your seasoning. Was already there, leaning against a counter with a clipboard like she was my manager. You're late, she said. I was chased by a husky, I replied. Tessa's eyes lit up. Coda. Yes, I said. Your town has a canine criminal. And did you meet his human? Tessa waggled her brows. I narrowed my eyes. Do not? Tessa grinned. Audrey.
He's adorable. He's 26, I said, as if that was a complete argument. Tessa shrugged. And?
And I am 38, I said. And? She repeated, unbothered. You make soup for a living. You can handle numbers. I opened my mouth, then closed it. Why is my best friend like this? Also, why is she not wrong? I set my carriers down and started unpacking. The familiar rhythm calmed me, pots, utensils, spices lined up in neat rows. Tessa glanced at my ingredient list. What are we testing tonight? My competition soup, I said, trying to sound casual. Roasted parsnip and pear bisque with sage brown butter, and the kitchen door swung open. Cold air rushed in. And Caleb walked in, carrying a grocery bag and Coda on a leash. Coda's ears perked the moment he saw me. He barked once like he was clocking in. Caleb's gaze found mine. He smiled, small and warm. Hey, he said. My stomach did the stupid flip again. Hey, I replied, too quietly. Tessa made a noise like a delighted ferret. Caleb walked over, stopping at a respectful distance. I saw the sign about prep nights. Thought you might be here. That's nice, I said. Caleb lifted the grocery bag. I brought ingredients. My brows rose. For what? He shrugged. You said you were testing, I figured. If you wanted a taste tester who doesn't pretend to know better than a chef, my chest warmed. Because that was exactly what most people did, taste and launch into unsolicited advice like they were auditioning for a cooking show. Caleb just offered support. I didn't ask you to do that, I said. I know, he replied. I wanted to. Tessa was watching us like she'd bought front row tickets. I shot her a look, she mouthed. He brought groceries, marry him. I mouthed back, stop. Caleb glanced between us. Am I interrupting? No, I said quickly. No, we're always like this, Tessa beamed. We are. Coda sat near my feet with monk-like focus. I gestured toward the burners. Okay, I'll make a test batch. You can try it. Caleb nodded. Only if you're comfortable with that. The fact that he said comfortable made my chest do a weird little somersault. I'm comfortable, I said. Am I? Don't ask me difficult questions in public. I got to work peeling parsnips, slicing pears, tossing them with olive oil and salt. The kitchen filled with sweet, earthy aromas as the vegetables roasted. Caleb washed his hands and quietly chopped onions when I nodded for help. He moved efficiently, like he'd spent time in situations where calm hands mattered. At one point, our fingers brushed as we reached for the same spoon.
He pulled back immediately. Sorry, he said. I stared at him.
Why are you apologizing for existing? His mouth quirked. Habit. I try not to take up space where I'm not invited. Something in that hit me, deep, familiar. I turned back to the pot, stirring, pretending my chest wasn't tight. You can take up space. Caleb's gaze held mine for a moment. Okay, then he did something that made my stomach warm and my heart nervous. He waited. Like he believed me, but he wasn't going to test the boundary. When the bisque was ready, I poured 3 small bowls. One for Tessa, one for Caleb, one for an older woman who wandered in because she smelled food and had the confidence of someone who'd survived. 3 kids and a decade of PTA meetings. That smells divine, the woman said, smiling at me. I'm Ruth. I'm part of the committee, Tessa whispered. Ruth is safe. She will still tell you the truth, but she won't destroy your soul. Good, I whispered back. Because my soul is already on probation, they tasted. I watched their faces like a nervous contestant on a cooking show. Ruth's eyebrows lifted. Oh, honey. That's lovely. Tessa sighed dramatically. Audrey, this is the kind of soup that makes you text your ex, I forgive you, and then delete it. Because you're better than that. Caleb tried his spoonful, paused, then looked up at me. It's comforting, he said. But not boring, my throat tightened. That's the goal, he nodded. You hit it, Ruth chuckled. If this doesn't win, I'll personally fight the judges, I laughed, surprised by the ease of it. Coda thumped his tail, as if he agreed. And there, in the warm community kitchen, with the smell of roasted parsnips and brown butter in the air, I felt something shift. Not just attraction, belonging, which was arguably scarier. The next day, the town did what small towns do best. It turned my life into a casual topic, not in a cruel way. Not always. More in that cheerful, nosy way that disguised judgment as curiosity. Oh, Audrey, someone said at the market, smiling too brightly. Caleb's been hanging around your stall, huh? Caleb's helping keep Coda from stealing my inventory, I said. The woman hummed, like she'd tasted scandal in the chowder. Sure. Excellent. The soup isn't even the main dish. I'm the side gossip. By late afternoon, I was tired. Not physically, emotionally. The kind of tired that lives in your shoulders and makes your smile feel like heavy cookware. I locked up my stall, then carried a box of carrots toward the community center. I was halfway across the square when I heard someone call my name. Audrey. Caleb jogged toward me through the snow, Coda trotting beside him like a celebrity's bodyguard. Caleb looked flushed from the cold and exertion, and it should have been illegal for someone to look that good while moving quickly. Need help? He asked, nodding at my box. I'm fine, I said automatically. Caleb didn't argue. He just held his hands out. If you want, I exhaled. Okay, fine, consent and offering. The audacity. Yes, I said, handing it over. I want. He took it like it didn't weigh anything. Where to? Community center kitchen. Caleb walked beside me, steady pace. Coda bounced between us with the joy of a dog who believed he was employed. We reached the kitchen and I set my bag down. Caleb placed the box on the counter, then turned toward me. His gaze was soft. You seem a little tense. I snorted. Me? Never, I'm a relaxed, breezy woman who loves being a town conversation. Caleb's mouth quirked. Is it bothering you? I hesitated. Because it shouldn't. I was a grown woman. I'd survived Michelin star kitchens, Boston traffic, and a man who once tried to explain my own recipe to me. But this was different. This was about being seen. I leaned my hip against the counter, arms folding. People think it's weird that you're entering a soup competition? Caleb asked, serious. I stared at him. He held my gaze, calm and open. Oh, I breathed, realizing. You're not pretending, he shook his head. I'm not, I laughed quietly. They think it's weird that you're here. Caleb's expression didn't change with embarrassment. It changed with understanding. Because I'm younger, he said. And because I'm older, I added. And curvy, and not the kind of woman they imagine with you. Caleb took a small step closer, not cornering me. Just closing distance like a question? I imagine you with me, he said softly. My breath caught. Okay, that sentence just walked into my chest and made itself comfortable. I swallowed. I don't want to be a joke. Caleb nodded once, slow. You won't be. How can you be so sure? I asked, and I hated how small my voice sounded. Caleb's eyes warmed. Because I'm not joking. The simplicity of it made my throat tight. I looked away, focusing on the stainless steel counter like it had answers. I left Boston because I couldn't breathe, I admitted. Work, pressure, my relationship. It was like living inside a room with no windows. Caleb stayed quiet, letting me continue. My ex, I said, voice bitter. He loved the idea of me until it got real, until I had needs. Until I wanted more than being convenient. Caleb's jaw tightened slightly, but he didn't speak over me. I exhaled. So, I came here to start over. To be the woman who makes soup and doesn't need anyone. Caleb's voice was gentle. Do you want to need no one? I opened my mouth, then closed it. Excellent question. Hate it. I want to be chosen, I said finally. Not rescued. Not fixed, chosen. Caleb nodded like he understood perfectly. Then that's what you deserve. I looked at him, heart hammering. Coda nudged my knee with his nose, then sat, watching us like he was waiting for the next emotional scene to begin. Caleb glanced down at Coda, then back up at me. I don't want to make your life harder. I don't want you to disappear just because people talk, I said quickly. Caleb's gaze held mine. Then I won't, but I'll follow your lead. A warmth spread through my chest. Okay, I whispered. Caleb's smile was small and real. Okay, and for the first time in a while, I didn't feel like I was bracing for impact. I felt steady. Winter Carnival weekend arrived like a movie montage. Snowridge Harbor transformed. Lights wrapped the pier. A bonfire crackled near the ice rink. The smell of fried dough and mulled cider drifted through the air like an invitation. And the community kitchen became a battleground of comfort food. Every burner was taken. Every counter had someone chopping, stirring, tasting, panicking, and insisting their soup was simple while using 14 spices and a prayer. Tessa moved through it all like a general. Audrey, you're on burner 3. Don't let Margie's chili near your bisque. She thinks cumin belongs in everything. That's because Margie is chaos, I muttered. Caleb arrived halfway through prep, carrying a bag of oranges and a thermos of hot tea.
He set the tea down gently. For you, I stared. You brought me tea, Caleb shrugged.
You look like you've been adopted by stress. I have, I said. We're registered as domestic partners. He smiled and my stomach warmed. Caleb didn't take over. He didn't act like he knew better. He washed dishes, wiped counters, and quietly stepped in when someone needed an extra set of hands. It was ridiculously attractive. Yes, Audrey. You are turned on by a man sanitizing a countertop. Welcome to adulthood. At some point, my spoon clattered into the sink. I'd been stirring too long, brain fogging from nerves. Caleb noticed immediately. Hey, he said softly, stepping close. Take a breath. I blinked up at him. I'm fine. Caleb's eyebrows lifted kindly. That's a chef lie, I snorted despite myself. He angled his body so we were tucked near the pantry shelves, away from the chaos. You don't have to carry all of it alone. My throat tightened. I'm trying to win, Caleb nodded. I know, and if I win, I can put down the deposit. I know, he repeated, steadier. And I want that for you. The way he said it like he was rooting for my life, not just my soup, made my chest ache. I swallowed. People are watching. Caleb glanced around. Let them. I looked at him. You make it sound easy, his gaze softened. It isn't easy, but it's simple. How? He hesitated, then answered honestly. Because I know what it feels like to be judged for something you can't change. My brow furrowed. Like what? Caleb's mouth tightened for a second. Everyone thinks I'm just a kid or a flirt. Or someone who'll leave. Something in his voice made me listen harder. I volunteer with rescue, he continued, quieter. I've seen real emergencies, real loss. But people still look at me like I'm playing at adulthood. My heart softened. I'm sorry, I said. Caleb shrugged, but it wasn't dismissive. I'm used to it. I shook my head. You shouldn't have to be. Caleb's gaze locked on mine, warm and intense. Neither should you. The air between us changed thicker, charged. I'm sorry, I said. Caleb shrugged, but it wasn't dismissive. I'm used to it. I shook my head. You shouldn't have to be. Caleb's gaze locked on mine, warm and intense. Neither should you. The air between us changed thicker, charged. I could smell cinnamon from someone's cookies. I could hear laughter across the kitchen. But all I could feel was Caleb. He lifted his hand slowly, stopping just short of touching my cheek. Can I? My entire body went warm. Yes, I whispered. His fingertips brushed my cheek gentle, careful like I was something precious. He leaned in. My eyes fluttered closed. And then, Audrey.
Tessa's voice cracked through the moment like a fire alarm.
I jerked back, cheeks burning. Caleb froze instantly, stepping away as if I'd asked him to. Tessa waved a ladle. The judge's briefing starts in 10. Also, Margie is trying to sabotage you with come in. Caleb blinked. Did she say sabotage? She did, I said dryly. Welcome to small-town competitive soup. Caleb's mouth quirked. High stakes. Tessa disappeared into the chaos. Caleb looked at me, soft apology in his eyes. I didn't mean to. You didn't, I said quickly. And thank you for asking. His expression warmed. Always. I swallowed, heart still racing. After the briefing, maybe we talk. Caleb nodded. I'd like that. Coda wandered over, dropped a stolen mitten at Caleb's feet, then sat with satisfaction. Caleb sighed.
He's proud of himself. Of course he is, I said. He's a menace with confidence. Caleb smiled.
And in that bright, noisy kitchen, with soup simmering and winter outside the windows, I realized something. I wasn't just scared. I was hopeful, which might have been the most dangerous ingredient of all. The rumor didn't start with malice. It started with boredom. Someone posted on the town's little online forum Snowridge Scoop a photo of Caleb standing at my stall, coda between us like a furry chaperone. The caption read, Audrey's got herself a younger helper. The comments ranged from supportive to nosy to that specific brand of judgment disguised as concern. Good for her. Isn't he a bit young? She's opening herself up to heartbreak. Maybe it's just for the carnival. I read it once, then twice because pain loves a replay button. Then I shut my phone off like it had insulted my mother. At the carnival that night, the square was packed. Music played, people skated under lights. The soup competition tent buzzed with excitement. I should have been focused on flavors and timing and presentation. Instead, I felt watched. Not in a flattering way. In a way that made me want to pull my coat tighter and disappear into the steam of my own soup. Caleb found me behind my booth, eyes immediately narrowing with concern. Hey, what's wrong? I forced a smile. Nothing. He didn't accept that. He didn't push either. He just asked softly, Did someone say something? I exhaled. The town has opinions. Caleb's jaw tightened slightly. About me? About us, I corrected, and my voice cracked on the word. Caleb's gaze softened. Do you want me to step back? My chest clenched. Because that was my old instinct to make things easier, even if it hurts. I opened my mouth to say yes. And then someone called my name from the front of the stall. Audrey. I looked up, and my stomach dropped. Dylan, my ex. Boston Dylan. Well-dressed even in winter, like he refused to accept weather as a concept. hair styled, smile too smooth. He held a cup of my soup like he was doing me a favor by tasting it. Tessa appeared at my side like a guard dog. "Oh no," she murmured. "We are not doing this." Dylan's eyes flicked past me to Caleb, then back to me. "Wow," he said. "This place really does the whole small-town postcard thing. What are you doing here?" I asked, trying to keep my tone neutral. Dylan smiled wider. "I'm in town for a few days. I saw your name on the Carnival list." He looked around like he expected applause. I did not applaud. "And I thought," he continued, "I should come support you. You know, like mature adults." Caleb went still beside me, not aggressive. "Just present." Dylan's gaze swept over Caleb again. "Friend of yours?" Caleb didn't answer for me. He waited. That made me love him a little, right there. "Yes," I said. "Caleb's a friend." Dylan's smile sharpened.
He seems young. Tessa made a choking noise like she'd swallowed judgment whole. I lifted my chin. "So?"
Dylan held up his soup cup. "Anyway." "The soup is good, thanks," I said. He leaned closer, voice dropping like it was a secret. "Audrey, I've been thinking about you." My whole body went cold. "I have a proposition," he said, smug. "There's a restaurant group in Boston. They'd invest in your concept. You could come back." My heart pounded, because that was the dream once. Then I remembered the windowless room, the cardboard butter, the way I'd felt like a supporting character in my own life. "I'm not coming back," I said steady. Dylan sighed like I was being unreasonable. "Come on, you're doing soup stalls. You're better than this." Tessa inhaled sharply. "Oh, I'm going to jail," she whispered. Caleb's voice stayed calm. "Don't talk to her like that." Dylan looked at Caleb, amused. "And you are?" Caleb didn't puff up. He didn't perform. He just said, "Someone who respects her." The simplicity of it made Dylan blink. I felt heat in my chest, not embarrassment, anger. "I'm doing this," I said, gesturing to my stall, "because I chose it. Because it's mine." Dylan's smile faltered slightly. "Audrey." "No," I said, sharper. "You don't get to show up and act like my life is a charity case." Dylan's eyes flicked around, noticing people watching. He lowered his voice. "We should talk privately." I laughed once, bitter. "No, we shouldn't." He stood straighter, offended. "Fine, if you want to play small-town fantasy, go ahead." His gaze slid to Caleb again. "Just don't pretend this isn't going to end." My stomach clenched. Old fear rose like smoke. Caleb didn't move, didn't react. Just looked at me, steady, waiting for what I wanted. Dylan walked away. I stood there, hands shaking, feeling like I'd swallowed ice. Caleb's voice was gentle. "Audrey, look at me." I did.
His eyes were warm. "You did great," I swallowed. "He makes me feel..."
"Like I'm foolish for wanting this." Caleb shook his head. "You're not foolish." Tears burned behind my eyes, but I blinked them back. Then I heard someone nearby whispering, "Is that her ex?" Poor thing. And that young guy, what is she doing? My chest tightened. The instinct to shrink roared back, to protect my dream, to protect my booth, to protect myself. I stepped back, voice trembling. "Caleb, maybe we should keep this professional. At least until after the competition." Caleb's face tightened with hurt, but he didn't argue. He didn't guilt me, he just nodded slow. "Okay." The gentleness of his acceptance made my eyes sting. Coda chose that moment to nudge my hand with his nose, then whine softly like even he thought this was a bad plot twist. Caleb clipped Coda's leash, voice quiet. "I'll give you space." He started to turn away, then paused. "If you need me," he said, "I'm here." Then he walked off into the snow-lit crowd, Coda looking back at me like I'd betrayed the pack. And I stood alone behind my soup stall, steam rising into the winter night, wondering why the thing I wanted most being chosen felt so terrifying when it showed up. The next morning, the weather decided to add drama. Snow came down, hard fat flakes, thick wind, the kind of storm that turned roads into suggestions. The Carnival committee texted, "Events postponed. Stay safe," which should have meant a day off. Instead, it meant chaos. Because Snowridge Harbor had a small clinic, limited plows, and a highway that could strand tourists like breadcrumbs. By noon, the community center was open as a warming station. People trickled in cold, anxious, grateful. Volunteers set up cots. Ruth organized blankets like a general. and I stood in the kitchen staring at my pots. I could have stayed home. I could have protected my peace. But my hands moved on their own like they knew where they belonged. I started a giant batch of soup. Because soup is what I do when the world gets sharp. And because feeding people is apparently my love language. An hour later, the kitchen door opened and Caleb walked in with snow in his hair, cheeks red from cold. A rescue jacket on that said volunteer empty. He looked exhausted. And when his eyes landed on me, something flickered in them, relief, pain, both. I swallowed. Hi. Caleb stopped at a respectful distance. Hi. We stood there for a second, the kitchen humming around us. Then Caleb's gaze dropped to the pots. You're cooking. Yes, I said. Caleb nodded. Good, not why. You don't have to, just good. He rolled his shoulders like he was letting go of something. We've got 3 cars stuck off Route 9. We're bringing them here. I grabbed ladles and bowls without thinking. How many people? Maybe 20, Caleb said. More if the road stays bad, I nodded. Okay, we can do that. Caleb watched me for a moment, then said softly, Audrey. About last night. I'm sorry, I blurted, voice cracking. I panicked. Caleb's eyes softened. You didn't do anything wrong. I did, I insisted. I asked you to shrink with me. Caleb exhaled. You were protecting yourself. I was letting the town control me. I corrected, and the words tasted like truth. I looked at him, hands trembling slightly. I don't want to do that anymore. Caleb's gaze held mine. What do you want? I took a breath. I want my dream. I want my booth. And I want to stop pretending I'm not allowed to want you. Caleb's expression shifted, hope, careful and bright. He didn't step closer. He didn't rush. He asked, Are you sure?
Yes, I said, steady. I'm sure. Caleb nodded.
Okay. Then he did something that made my chest ache. He smiled. Not triumphant, not smug, just happy. And then he turned to the room beyond the kitchen, voice clear. We need more tables. More hot drinks. Anyone who can help, come here. People moved. Ruth barked orders. Tessa appeared, hair in a messy bun, eyes wide. Why is everyone here? She demanded. Snowstorm, I said. Tessa blinked, then snapped into action. Okay, I'm in charge of bread. You always are, I muttered. The door opened again and again, families, older couples, stranded travelers. Someone brought a crate of oranges. Someone donated cookies. The community center filled with warmth and noise, and the kind of togetherness that made my heart hurt in the best way. Caleb moved through it all like he belonged, calm, steady, checking on people, quietly reassuring. At one point, an older man with a skeptical face watched Caleb ladle soup into a bowl for a child. The man's gaze flicked to me, then to Caleb. He said, loud enough to be heard, That your boyfriend? My heart tried to leap out of my body. Every old fear screamed, hide, joke, deflect, shrink. Caleb looked at me, gentle question in his eyes, leaving the answer to me. I lifted my chin. Yes, I said. If he wants to be... Caleb's breath hitched slightly. Then he said, steady, I want to be... The room didn't explode. No one fainted. Ruth just smiled. Tessa made a strangled sound and wiped her eyes aggressively like she'd gotten soup in them. The older man grunted, then nodded once. Good, that dog's been trying to set you up all week. Kodahu had been lying like a furry. Rug near the heater lifted his head proudly and thumped his tail. I laughed, a little breathless. Okay, so we're doing public emotional bravery today. Cool, very terrifying. Love it. Later, when the storm eased and the last travelers headed home, the kitchen was quiet again, just the hum of the heater, the smell of broth, the soft clatter of cleaning. Caleb helped stack chairs. I wiped counters. Our movements sensed like we'd done this before. Caleb spoke softly. Dylan won't be here forever. I know, I said. Caleb's gaze held mine. But I will be if you want me. My chest tightened. I set the cloth down and stepped closer. I want you. Caleb's eyes warmed. Can I kiss you? The question simple, respectful made my whole body soften. Yes, I whispered. His hands came to my waist, firm and gentle. His mouth met mine warm, sure, unhurried. The kiss tasted like cinnamon and tea and something hopeful. I pulled back slightly, breathless. Koda's watching. Caleb glanced over my shoulder. Coda stared directly at us, tail wagging as if he were approving a contract. Caleb sighed. He's very involved.
He's union, I said, and Caleb laughed against my cheek.
And in that quiet kitchen with snow melting off boots by the door and the world softened by winter, I felt it. Not rescue. Not desperation. Choice. The next day, the town woke up buzzing. Not just about the carnival resuming. About the fact that the community center had fed half the highway during a snowstorm. And apparently that Audrey Lane and Caleb Mason had stopped hiding. I braced for impact. Instead, people smiled at me. Ruth hugged me hard enough to crack a rib. You did good, honey. Tessa practically glowed. Your love story is sponsoring my serotonin. Focus, I warned her. The soup competition tent filled by late afternoon. Judges sat at a long table, clipboards ready. The crowd milled around, laughing, holding sample cups, cheeks pink from cold. My pot of parsnip and pear bisque sat like a golden promise. Caleb stood near the edge of my stall, hands in pockets, calm as ever. Coda sat at his feet like a furry bouncer. Dylan appeared briefly, because of course he did, but when he saw the way people greeted me now, the way the community center volunteers clapped me on the shoulder, the way Caleb's presence beside me was steady and unashamed. He looked smaller. He tried to speak to me once. I said, not today, and that was that. The judges came to my stall. I ladled, hands steady. One judge, a woman with sharp eyes, tasted, then paused. This is balanced, she said. I held my breath. Comforting, she continued, but surprising. My throat tightened. That's what I wanted, I said quietly. The judge nodded once. You achieved it. They moved on. Time stretched. People laughed. Someone fell on the ice rink outside and got applauded for trying. The bonfire crackled. The harbor lights glimmered. And then the mayor stepped up with a microphone. Snowridge Harbor, he boomed. Thank you for showing up. Thank you for supporting local businesses and our community center roof fund. And thank you to our soup contestants because you are the reason we survive winter with our hearts intact. Applause rose. The mayor lifted an envelope. In third place, Margie's chili, cheers and boos at once. Margie waved like a queen. In second place, Ruth's chicken noodle. Ruth gasped dramatically and accepted her ribbon, laughing. My heart pounded. And in first place, the mayor said, smiling, the winner of the Winter Carnival soup competition. I felt Caleb's hand hover near mine, not touching yet. Waiting. Audrey Lane and her roasted parsnip and pear bisque. The world went bright. I blinked, stunned. Then the tent erupted. Tessa screamed like she'd just won. Ruth clapped. People cheered. Caleb's hand slid into mine, warm and firm. You did it, he murmured. I laughed, half sob, half disbelief. I did it. I stepped forward to accept the ribbon and the check, hands shaking. The mayor leaned close. You're opening that storefront, right? I swallowed. Yes, I am. Cheers again. I turned back toward Caleb, heart full and terrified and alive. Caleb looked at me like I was the whole reason winter existed. Can I? He asked softly, nodding toward my mouth. I smiled, eyes stinging. Yes. He kissed me right there, in front of everyone. Not a show, not dramatic. Just a warm, honest kiss that felt like a door opening. Coda barked once, triumphant, then sneezed like he'd been emotionally overwhelmed. Later, after the crowd drifted away and the tent emptied, we walked down toward the harbor. Snow fell lightly, gentle now. The water beyond the docks was dark and calm. Caleb squeezed my hand. So, he said, voice low, storefront. Later, after the crowd drifted away and the tent emptied, we walked down toward the harbor. Snow fell lightly, gentle now. The water beyond the docks was dark and calm. Caleb squeezed my hand. So, he said, voice low, storefront. I exhaled, laughing softly. Storefront. And you, he added, careful. Are you okay with being seen? I looked at him, this younger man with older eyes, steady hands, and a heart that didn't flinch from my life. I'm okay, I said. I'm more than okay. Caleb's gaze warmed.
Good. We stopped by the railing.
The lights from the pier made gold ribbons on the water. Caleb turned toward me. I meant what I said. I'm here. If you want me, I lifted my chin. I want you, He smiled slowly, like he was trying not to look too happy and failing. Consent check, he murmured, brushing his thumb over my knuckles. Can I take you home? My body warmed in that delicious, safe way that had nothing to do with shame. Yes, I whispered. You can. Koda chose that moment to wedge himself between us, tail wagging, demanding equal affection. Caleb sighed. Chaperone, I laughed. Matchmaker. We walked back through town, the clock tower chiming in the distance, the air smelling like smoke and cinnamon and possibility. And for the first time in a long time, I didn't feel like I was starting over alone. I felt like I was starting over finally at home.